Hey, what in the hell is happening? Nick Digilio, how are you? Hey, thanks for checking out my YouTube channel. Subscribe right now to my YouTube channel. You can also check me out on Patreon. That's a great way to help out. These videos are separate from my podcast. I just put them together on my own. They're DIY, as you can tell by the fantastic camera quality. So I need all the help I can get. If you want to become a patron, that would be fantastic. You could pick a tier. Donate $3, $9, $25 a month. You'll get bonus material, including behind-the-scenes stories of what happened at WGN and more. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Get there now. Donate. That'd be great. Patreon.com/NickDShow. And my podcast, as I mentioned, a new episode of the podcast drops every Tuesday and Friday every week. It's on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Subscribe to it at RadioMisfits.com and wherever you get your podcast, whatever platform or format that you use. Subscribe, rate, review, all that cool stuff. Every Tuesday, every Friday, a brand new podcast just for you. And on those podcasts, I review movies with my buddies Eric Childress and Steve Procopi, among many, many other things, and recurring guests, and having fun and telling stories and hanging out with Esmeralda Leon. But movies is a big one. And speaking of movies, opening today, and I saw it last night, the latest installment in the fantastic, magnificent, spiritual Jackass series, Jackass Forever, is out now. And it's great. It's great. Last night was the first of many times I will see it. I am a huge fan of Jackass. I cut a video. If you are on the YouTube channel, scroll down a little bit. A few videos down, a few videos earlier, I cut a video that was an entire love letter to Jackass and the series and the offshoots and the movies and all the cast members and all the really cool, all the crazy shit they've been doing for over 20 years now. So I unapologetically love Jackass. I think it's fucking great. I think it's genius. I think it's hilarious. I adore Jackass, everything it's about, everything that it spawned. And so, going into this movie, obviously I was very excited. It was supposed to come out last October. In fact, it was supposed to open on the same day as Dune, which would have been the greatest day in the history of film releasing. Dune and Jackass on the same day? Come on. That's like, hey, what would Nick like on one day? Oh, Dune and Jackass. Well, anyway, because there was a spike, and the Omicron thing happened, a spike in COVID, Paramount decided they'd wait. They'd wait a few months and release it in February. So all the people who have been waiting for new Jackass stuff, let's say 11 years, had to wait even longer, from October to February. Well, it's out now. The wait is over. The 11 years between Jackass, 11 and a half years between Jackass 3D and this one, the wait's over. And here it is. And it's fucking great. It's absolutely great. All the regular guys, a lot of the regular guys are back. Johnny Knoxville, obviously. Jeff Tremaine comes back behind the scenes directing. He appears in it as well. You've got Steve-O. You've got Dave England. You got Danger Aaron. All the way, Wee Man Preston. All those guys. Now, some of the guys obviously are not there. Ryan Dunn, who was my favorite Jackass, unfortunately passed away. He died as a result of his own fucking stupidity. He was in a drunk driving accident. He was behind the wheel. He was loaded, and now he's dead. But he was my favorite Jackass and added so much to the crew and so much to what they did. And Bam Margera is not a part of the... He is, actually. He's in one scene. But he was asked not... He was fired because he was on drugs. He would not... They made him sign a contract saying you can't do drugs, you can't show up fucked up, and you can't do that. You'll sacrifice, it won't be good for the production. So they fired him, and then he filed a lawsuit. Jeff Tremaine refiled the lawsuit, put a restraining order against him. Bam was, cutting these really scary and weird videos where he's clearly the drugs and whatever mental issues he's having, and he does have legitimate mental issues. He had to work them out, so he's not in it. As a result, the CKY guys, including Dunn, Rob's in it. Rob himself is in it. But some of the other CKY guys, the Can't Kill Yourself CKY guys are not in it. And Bam's family, Bam's parents and stuff are not in it as well. So that's kind of sad that happened. But They brought in some new blood. Now here's the thing. One of the things about Jackass Forever is that it's kind of a melancholy, sentimental, and really beautiful movie. And I know that might sound stupid to you, because if you're like, how can you talk about a movie where a bunch of guys get kicked in the nuts for an hour and a half and they do these really stupid stunts and prove just how goddamn dumb they are? How can it be, melancholy? How can it be sentimental? Well, because I care about these guys. I like these guys. I've been watching, Jackass in some form or another for over 20 years. And so, yeah, you know these guys. And they've gotten older now. A lot of these guys are in their 50s now. A lot of them have kids now. They can't keep doing this crazy shit. If you look at these guys and how they've aged, like Johnny Knoxville, for most of this movie has gray hair. Preston Lacey and Wee Man, they're still like big fat guy, little short guy, but they're old now. Dave England really looks worse for wear. And a lot of these guys, you could see age, the normal amount of age that someone would have, and how that's accelerated by all the crazy shit they've done to their bodies over the years. So there's a bit of melancholy and sentimentality there. So in order to spice it up a little bit, they bring in some new blood in this one. And that includes Rachel Wolfson, who is a stand-up comedian and adds, some estrogen to the proceedings. And there's a lot of, trust me, there's a lot of testosterone in this movie, as there are in all of them. But I think if it's possible, and if you've seen the Jackass movies, you know how big a statement I'm about to make this is, how big a statement it is. I think there are more dick and balls in this movie than any other Jackass movie. And not just like appearances of dick and balls. I'm talking close-ups, extreme close-ups, slow motion. The whole opening credit sequence involves a gigantic, real dick and balls. So if you want to see, the Jackass cast members' genitalia on a pretty regular basis, like every other scene, seriously, and that's a lot to say. If you've seen the Jackass movies, you know how fond they are of pulling out their junk and their garbage and showing it to everybody. But anyway, Rachel Wolfson, she shows up, stand-up comedian, makes a great impression, very funny, does some really cool stunts, fits right in. You got a guy named Jasper Dolphin, who is like from the hood, literally. And brings a different perspective to it, grew up watching Jackass. That's what all the commonality that these people have is, that they're younger and they grew up watching Jackass. Jasper brings in his father, Compton Wilson, who is known as Dark Shark. The guy's an ex-con, like a full-on badass ex-con. They do a stunt with him where they put a helmet over his head with a tube in it, and Aaron is on one side with a helmet on, and they drop a tarantula in, and the tarantula crawls towards this ex-con's face. It's pretty fucking cool. Eric Monica, who was actually in Action Point, Action Point with Knoxville, is in this. And then there's Zach Holmes. They call him Zackass. He's the big fat guy. He's like a younger Preston Lacey. Preston is the big fat guy who they do crazy shit to. He does crazy stunts, and then they show it in super slow-mo so that you can see all the fat and folds of his body in slow motion. Well, Zach is kind of that new guy, and he's fantastic and is willing to do anything. And then there's Poopies, a guy named Poopies who got that name because after watching Jackass one day, he went out and took a shit in the street, and they filmed it. I love Jackass so much. So these are the new guys, and Poopies is great too. He's an idiot. He does crazy shit as well. So you got in the new blood, you got all these other guys, and then you've got, like, in addition to the endless amount of close-ups of cock and balls in this movie and what they do to them. I mean, there's stuff, if you're a guy and you're watching this movie, the stuff that they do to their junk in this movie, like, at one point, Pontius flattens his penis till it's like this thin, puts it between two pieces of, like, fiberglass. Not fiberglass, puts it between two places of plexiglass. Fiberglass. I wouldn't put it past them to put their dicks in fiberglass. And at one point, Steve-O has a queen bee wrapped around his penis, and all the other bees attack him and sting his balls, and it's magnificent. But in addition to all of that, they bring out, they bring out the guns. I mentioned the opening credits. The opening credit sequence is just phenomenal. All the opening credit sequences in the Jackass movies are really memorable and really crazy. And this one goes far beyond the realm of taste. It's directed by Spike Spike Jonze comes in and directs it. It's got cameos by a bunch of people, and you know, the cameos by a bunch of people include Eric Andre is in this one, Machine Gun Kelly, who gets slapped by a giant hand, Rob Dyrdek from Ridiculousness, who basically owns MTV at this point, Francis Ngannou is a UFC fighter, the heavyweight UFC fighter, who basically shows up just to punch Danger Aaron in the balls. There's a sequence in this movie where they do a whole bunch of tests. They test a cup, and the cup test is something they did 20 years ago on the show. One of the first stunts they did where Johnny Knoxville put on a cup, and a bunch of kids like came up and kicked him in the nuts to see if the cup actually worked. Well, they bring that up to a glory. I mean, and it's so funny because when Johnny Knoxville introduces it, he's like, you know, sometimes we come up with great new stunts. Sometimes we just do the same old stupid shit. And so Aaron, Danger Aaron, who, by the way, does the craziest shit in this movie. He's the MVP of this movie. Without question, Danger Aaron does the most, and even more than Steve-O. He's a little bit younger than Steve-O, so maybe that's why he's doing it. But he does some insane shit. And the long sequence of test after test after test where he gets knocked in the nuts while wearing cups. Like, for instance, a heavyweight UFC fighter punches him straight in the nuts when he's wearing a cup. It's unbelievable. He has a pogo stick jumped on top of him while he's wearing a cup. So they do the cup tests, and at one point, like his balls are bleeding. It's unbelievable. It's glorious. So anyway, that UFC fighter shows up. Spike Jonze, like I said, is in a whole bunch of skateboarders. My favorite cameo is also in the nut testing, where they're testing the cup by smashing Aaron's balls as much as possible. PK Subban shows up from the New Jersey Devils, a great hockey player, and they put Aaron in a hockey goal, with you know, like all the goalie gear, you know, the pads on the knees, the mask, and you know, all that stuff. Except they have his balls exposed with the cup, and then PK Subban, who is a professional hockey player, takes slap shots at his nuts. It's glorious. So you got all these guys, and then a whole bunch of like animal stunts. I mentioned the bees and Steve-O's balls. Johnny Knoxville, who's 50, does a stunt with a bull. He gets hit by a bull again, like he did 20 years ago, and this time it's dangerous and insane. They do some shit with scorpions. This girl that I mentioned, Rachel Wolfson, does a bit called Scorpion Plastic Surgery, where she allows a scorpion to sting her on the lips so that she can get like a lip job. Like, so there's that. And there's a wonderful moment in it where the scorpion, like they try to bring the scorpion up to Rachel's lips, and the scorpion's going to sting her on the lips so that her lips will swell up and she can look like a model. But at one point the scorpion falls and it crawls onto her boob. And Rachel's like, oh my God, I don't want this thing on my boob. And one of the guys goes, well, I need your permission to touch your boob. I don't want to. I need your consent to touch your boob. And she's like, yes, you have my consent. You have consent. Please get it off my boob. But then somebody in the background says, yeah, it's 2021. We got to have to ask your consent. So, you know, the maturity level is up a little bit. They bring out spiders. They bring out snakes. Poopies does a bit. They do this bit called the quiet game, where they're dressed up like mimes and horrible things happen to them and they can't scream or they lose. You've got an incredible moment where Aaron, again, Danger Aaron, who does the craziest shit, they've got him like strapped down to a chair and they're doing a lie detector test on him and then shocking him every time he tells a lie. But then he doesn't know this. He's covered in honey. They bring out a whole bunch of salmon. They put salmon by his groin and salmon all over him. They leave the room, open up the door, and a bear comes in. I won't tell you what happens after that, but it's unbelievable. And guys like Lance Bangs now has become like this cult hero. Lance is one of the cameramen who covers all the ridiculous stunts they do and has a tendency to vomit at the gross stuff. Like, he's in all of the Jackass movies and on the TV show. Lance Bangs, the cameraman for Jackass, is always the first guy to puke. And you know there's a lot of puking in it. When they do gross gags, there's a lot of puking in this movie. At one point, Steve-O vomits and his fake tooth falls out. He pukes his tooth out. But there's vomiting, and they do a thing called the vomitron, and they crank it up to incredible decibels and levels. But Lance is this guy now who is known for vomiting. He's a cameraman who, when he vomits, they like to kick him in the nuts and all that stuff. But yeah, but Lance is in it. There's gallons of pig semen in this getting dumped on people. So all of it's there. If you're looking for all the crazy stunts, they're still doing it. The younger people are coming in to pick up the slack because these guys are in their 50s and they got families and shit. And so there's a marching band thing where everybody dresses up like a marching band, and they've got what's the goddamn thing? A treadmill going like 90 miles an hour. They got this huge treadmill going 90 miles an hour, and the guys are dressed like marching band members, and they step on the treadmill and then just basically go flying across the room and smash into a wall. And that's the only time you see Bam Margera, because he filmed that before he got fired, before the shit went down. And so they don't introduce him in the movie. He doesn't get like his name on the screen like most of the Jackass stunts do, but he's there. If you look for him, you can see Bam. He's in the marching band treadmill bit. And a lot of the stuff that they would do on the street, like the man on the streets pranks that they would play on people, are not really in this movie. There's only a couple of them. There's only a few. And that's because of lockdown. COVID affected the movie, the way they were shooting it. You'll see a lot of people in masks, even though they're still getting blown up in porta potties and shit flies all over the place. They still wear their masks. They still were, doing what they need to do. Everybody was, vaxxed up and masked up, despite the fact that they were getting bodily fluids and pig semen thrown all over them. But so as a result of the COVID and the lockdown and everything, the man on the street stuff, the pranks on regular people, there's not a lot of that. So as a result, the pranks on each member of the Jackass cast is amplified by 1 million. Like, there are a ton of unbelievable pranks that are played on the cast members. The best segment in the movie, and I'm not going to give it away, but the best segment in the movie is called Silence of the Lambs. And it involves a series of pranks that are pulled on pairs of cast members who are put into this room and isolated. It's called The Silence of the Lambs. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give away what the stunt is or what the joke is or what the prank is or how these guys react to being pranked. Let me just say that this Silence of the Lambs segment, it's maybe 10 minutes long. It is the hardest I've laughed at anything in a long time. It's the funniest 10 minutes of film that I have seen, like some of the funniest 10 minutes I've ever seen in my life in a movie. I was doubled over with laughter, crying with laughter. The Silence of the Lambs sequence in Jackass Forever, one of the funniest things that the Jackass people have ever done. Ever. It's fucking hilarious. So that's all I'm going to say about that, except that it's brilliant. So they had to, change things a little bit because of COVID and the lockdown, so they picked on each other more, and it's funny. And so, all this stuff is great, and then towards the end, they actually kind of do a bit during the final credits where they do a split screen, and they show a lot of the Jackass guys from 20-something years ago being really young and doing stupid shit, and they split the screen and show them doing it now. And there's a sense of, melancholy, and kind of, I got a little teary-eyed. I got a little choked up at the end when they were showing what they were doing 20 years ago and how they looked now. And so there is just this great heritage. I don't give a shit if people, you can mock me all you want if you think it's stupid that I think that there is a heritage to it, that there's something to be left behind. I think what they did was great and very successful. So to see this split screen where they're in their late 40s and 50s now, when they were in their 19 or 20-year-old selves, it's beautiful. It's great. And to know that these guys are still friends is great. And that's one of the things about the movie that I think works. There's a big dedication at the end to Ryan Dunn, as I mentioned, my favorite jackass of them all. Who passed away because he fucking idiot drunk got behind the wheel of a car. But they do dedicate the movie to him, and there's some footage of Dunn in the movie, and that gets a little emotional. And it does get emotional, And the other thing about this movie that I really think, and I'm being completely sincere, this is an important movie to come out at this time. Because it's a movie that only really works if you're with a group of people. And that's what the movies are about. That's what Jackass is always about. It's about a tight-knit group of people. And these guys are a family. They've known each other. I mean, they may punch each other in the nuts and do terrible pranks to one another and laugh and vomit at shit that they do while they're in pain. But they're true friends. These guys have known each other for over 20 years. And these new people who have come in, the baton has been handed to them. And they are tight friends. And it's about being friends. The movie is ultimately about laughing with your friends. That's what it's about. It's about laughing your ass off and having a great time and leaving your brain off and not worrying about anything. Not thinking about any problems of the world or any of that shit. Just being with your friends and laughing your ass off. That's what these movies are about. That's always been what these movies are about. And that's why this movie is so important now. At a time when we have been isolated, when we've gone through some of the worst shit we've ever gone through in this world, with a pandemic and unrest in the streets and injustice and people protesting and things and all of the really intense things that are happening. We are having an insane man in the White House for 4 fucking years who did more damage to this country than anybody's ever done as president of the United States. We had to put up with that shit for 4 years. So we've had that idiot. Then we have COVID. Then we have all this other stuff happening. Then we can't see each other. We're locked in our apartments or in our places. We can't go to work. A lot of people are still not going to work. The COVID's not over. It's still part of our lives every day. Our lives have been changed, and not for the better, for the worse. We've been separated. We've been isolated. This movie is about being together. And it's come out at a time when a lot of us are now starting to come out of our shells and starting to come out of this lockdown and being together. And that's what this movie's about. It's about friends getting together and laughing their asses off and forgetting all the bullshit in the world. There's no COVID. There's no political shit. There's no wars. There's just a bunch of friends together who love each other and are laughing their fucking asses off. And that's what this movie's about. And that's why it's important. I don't give a shit what anybody says. These movies are important. And it was important to see it. I saw it last night in a theater full of people. We were all vaxxed. We walked into the theater, had to show our vax card, had to show our ID, had to have our masks on, and we sat in that theater, all of us, and we laughed our asses off. We didn't know each other. None of us really knew each other, but we bonded for 95 minutes and laughed our balls off at stuff that we thought was hilarious. And that's the way you see this movie. And there's a message at the beginning of the movie where Knoxville and Tremaine come out and they say, hey, please, thank you so much for coming out. It means so much. Because these movies really don't work. I mean, I watch Jackass in my apartment alone and laugh my ass off. But to watch Jackass, especially a new one, with new stunts and new people, to watch that in a room full of people, like-minded people, who just want to have fun, especially after the 2 years, and 4 years if you count Trump, of nonsense that we've had to deal with, to just go to a movie theater, take your friends, or meet people at the movie theater, wear your mask, everybody sits in that movie theater and everybody laughs their ass off. It is a great, important experience. It is. And it's not something that we should underestimate the importance of. So I love these movies, and I make no apology for it. And I think they're important. And I think Jackass Forever is an important movie at this time. It's about friends coming together, having a great time, laughing their ass off, and loving each other. That's the message of this movie. So it's a great message, it's a great movie, and on top of that, there's more dick and balls than you can possibly imagine. There's people doing incredible, it's just so stupid and so great, and I loved it. And as a tribute to all the guys who've been doing it for 20 years, it's beautiful. If you've been a fan since the beginning like I have, it is a payoff that's magnificent. So I cannot tell you how much I love Jackass Forever. I absolutely loved it. It's only February, and I guarantee you that this movie is going to be in my top 10 list at the end of the year, like the other 3 Jackass movies were all the other times that they came out. It's a special one. It's great. It's closure, yet it's not. It's melancholy and sad, yet it's happy. And it's fucking ridiculous and stupid, and it revels in stupidity. And that's what it's all about. So, put on your mask and go see it. And go see it with friends. Go see it with a group of people. See it in a crowded theater. That's the way these movies are meant to be seen. And yeah, and this is it's like therapy, you know, at a time when we all kind of need it. We all need therapy. We all need to laugh at shit. And if you want therapeutic laughs, you can't find bigger ones or better ones than in Jackass Forever. It's fucking great.